video is going to cover Google Classroom on the iPads. We're actually going to start on our computer, so we're just going to be looking at setting up Google Classroom as a teacher, adding some content for the students, and then we'll switch over to a student view on an iPad. And we'll look at how students can interact with the content, how they access things, how we sign in, and then we'll finish up with some app integration. So to get started, we're just going to look at some class settings within Google Classroom. You will have your Google Classrooms rostered for you, so students will already be in Google Classroom. They will have to accept those invitations, so that's something that you would want to do in the first few days of class. We'll talk about signing in to those apps on the iPad as well. But students will already be in your classroom for you, so we'll just look at a few things in Google Classroom settings, things that you might want to turn off, turn on, and how those things look for students. So I'm going to hop over to my Google Classroom here, and in the top right hand corner there's a settings wheel. I'm going to click that, and I get my class details. So my class name will already be populated in there, and we're going to look at the general area for just a second. So in general, the first thing I want to point out is the stream. Now your stream is like a digest of what's happening in the class. So it is going to include announcements that you make. It's going to include anytime you add content to the classroom, or it can include anytime you add content, and students can actually comment on what you've done in your stream unless you turn it off. So by default, Google Classroom is going to be set up that students can post and comment on the stream. My recommendation is to click on that box and change it to either students can only comment or only teachers can post and comment. And this might be a good setting for the beginning of the school year or for remote learning. And then as you allow students to progress through the technology, then maybe you give them more freedom with being able to comment on the stream. The next one here is classwork on the stream. I believe it is going to default to show condensed notifications or show attachments and details. I actually recommend that you just hide the notifications altogether. What this is going to do is it's going to make your stream only announcements instead of announcements and classwork. You keep your stream and your classwork separate, and this is just a nice way to keep it clean. The next thing I have here is show deleted items, and as the teacher you can turn that on or off. We typically don't worry too much about Guardian summaries because most of our Google Classroom information is going to be fairly light. If a parent is interested in learning more about Google Classroom, or they'd like to see what their students do, we recommend that they just sign in as their student. And then the last thing right underneath that is going to be Google Meet. This is going to be really important if and when we go into a remote learning setting, or even on some of our planned remote learning days, you can have a Google Meet with your class, and this is how you would set it up. We do recommend using this method because it will allow you to have a little more control. Students will not be able to get into the Google Meet until a teacher is in there, and then once all the students leave, then the teacher can leave, and it will actually close out that Google Meet. And you can decide to turn this on or off for students. Maybe it's something that you keep off until we go into a remote learning day, and then you turn it on so that the students have that information. And then when I'm done in this area, I can just click Save. So there are a few things that we're able to add within our classwork area. The first thing will be topics. We'll look at those, and that's really how we organize assignments and materials and quizzes and questions and all those things. So we're able to organize those within topics. Next, we have materials, and materials are a one-way street for students. So it's just something that they're going to look at or watch or visit a link. It's a one-way street for them to access content. The next thing is assignments, and that's going to be our most popular, and it's going to be a two-way street for you and the students. So that means you give them something and they turn something else back in. And then same thing with quiz assignments. This will allow you to add a Google form that can be assigned to the students within Google Classroom and actually taken on the iPad. So if I go back to my Google Classroom, again, this is my stream, and you can see I made an announcement here on June 4th. I'm going to come up to my classwork tab, and you can see I have several topics. and I'm going to add a new topic now. So I'll come up to the top and click Create Topic, and we'll call this July 2020. My new topic is going to be added to the top. Students will not see that topic until there is a piece of material available for them. So whether it be an assignment, quiz assignment, material, question, anything, there actually has to be something in that topic for students to see it. So let's create a piece of material first. So I'm going to click Material, and it's just going to ask me for some details about that material. So maybe this is a slideshow that I want them to look through, or again, a video it could be. I can add an additional description in here, and then I'm going to click Add. So as I mentioned before, I can add things from my Google Drive, a link, a file, or a YouTube video. I can also create a blank form or doc or slide or sheet drawing, and then I can go back in and edit those things after I've created this maybe placeholder here. Actually, we're going to switch this to a July video. I'm going to open up YouTube, and I can actually search within YouTube here. So I could have already searched for a YouTube video, or I can just search in here. So I'm going to search for a crash course video, and we'll do the digestive system. That looks great. So here is my video for the students to watch. They can see that it's a YouTube video. It's 11 minutes. Since it is a crash course video, it's probably already approved for students, so just some things to think about there. But on the right hand side, I am able to assign it to multiple classes if I need to. I can also assign it to specific students. So maybe I look at using this as a small group differentiation, then I can actually just click on the 4 or 5 names of the students that might need this video, and then assign it just to them. It's only going to show up for those students then. And then finally, I'm going to add my topic. My newest topic was July 2020. When I'm ready, I can either click Post, or if I click this little arrow next to Post, I can schedule it, save it as a draft, or discard. So I click Post, and here's my video, and it is material. It's got that little icon. So now let's add an assignment for our students. I'm actually going to add 2 assignments just because I'd like to show you what the iPads can do. So the first one I'm going to call an annotation example. So what you'll notice is that when I create an assignment, it looks very similar to creating material. And there's consistency then, at least. I can add instructions in here, but I'm going to click Create, or I'm going to click Add, Google Drive item, and I think I have a first grade worksheet. So this is just an example of something that I had grabbed from somewhere, and the students can annotate over this, and I'll show you what that looks like on the iPads. For this one, I added a worksheet, or maybe I added a slideshow presentation, or I can even add multiple things. So not only do I want that document, but I also want this slideshow presentation, and I get different settings for each one. So let's look at the PDF. I'm going to actually click over here and say make a copy for each student. So I want this Google Classroom iOS slideshow. I want this to be view, but I want to make a copy for each student of this document. And maybe there's something else that they're collaborating on, so I'm also going to choose students can edit file. So however I want to do this, I can change those permissions in there. Over on the right hand side, again, very similar options to what we had before. We can choose the class, we can choose the students. I can choose how many points this is going to be worth, so it might be ungraded, or maybe it's going to be worth 10 points. If I select a due date, it will actually show up on our class calendar. And then I'll add my topic. And I would say for the most part, most of us are not going to be using rubrics in here, but I do at least want to mention it. Google Classroom does have rubrics. You are able to add, criterion, and you can then grade the assignment based on the rubric and so on. So that is something that is available, but I would say for the most part, our K1 classes are probably not going to be utilizing rubrics. And then at the top right, just like I had before, I can either assign it, or I can schedule it or save it as a draft. The last item that I am going to add to my July 2020 topic here is I'm going to actually add a question. Oh, I said I was going to add 2 assignments. Yes. So let's add another assignment. The other assignment is going to be called Draw and Tell, and you'll see why in just a second. Draw and Tell, but I'm not going to add or create anything in this. It's just going to be called Draw and Tell. It's maybe going to be worth 10 points. And let's add a due date. And we've got our topic, and I'll click Assign again. So I get my 3 items in here, and then the final thing that I'm going to do, like I mentioned, is add a question. So questions are exactly that. They're really nice, short. Maybe I don't want an entire Google form, but I just want a question to be asked to the students and something for them to answer. So maybe my question today is, did you bring your lunch? And I can do either short answer or multiple choice. Option 1 is yes. Option 2 is no. So I could say yes, I brought my lunch, or no, I need hot lunch, something along those lines. I can add instructions for this. I'm going to make this one ungraded. We'll make sure that we put it in our topic. My students don't really need to see each other's answers. I want to assign it to everyone, and then I can click Ask. So that's us adding our materials and things to Google Classroom and creating that space for the students to collaborate. Next, we're going to look at how students sign in to Google Classroom on the iPad. We actually recommend that students sign in to Google Drive first, and then they will select Google Classroom and log in there, and I'll show you what that looks like. Once the students log in, we'll just go through how they will access each of those assignments that we created already and how they'll turn in work to you as the teacher. So we're going to start by going into Google Drive, and that's actually where we're going to sign in to our Google account. So I'm going to open up Google Drive. I'm going to click Sign In. And then as a student, I'll sign into my Gmail account. As a reminder, all students, even if they're in kindergarten and first grade, they do have Google accounts. So they don't necessarily have email turned on, but they'll still have their username at tscstudents.net. Then I'll click Next. And they're going to get to the TSC sign-in page. Oh, wrong one. And then Tyler's going to click Sign In. So now he has been signed in to his TSC Google account, and he can see at the top right hand corner he's got a little T that indicates that it's his account. And then I'll just close out of Google Drive, and I'm going to go to Google Classroom. When I go into Google Classroom, it will ask me to choose an account, and as you can see here, Tyler's account shows up right at the top there. I'll click on Tyler's name, and now let's take a little tour from a student's standpoint. So Tyler's in this class. He can see the stream. What was normally at the top of our Google Classroom is now going to be at the bottom of our Google Classroom on iOS. We're going to have our stream first. Then we're going to have our classwork, and this is where we're going to see all those activities that we had before. So the first thing was our July video. We can see that there's our crash course video that we chose. Next, I'm going to go to my annotation example. So I'm just clicking on each of these assignments. If I'd like to see the work, I can expand the bottom of that, and I'm going to see Tyler Margison PDF. And when I click on that, it gives me a little preview of the PDF. What I'm able to do now is in the top right hand corner, I can actually click the pencil, and I can mark up this PDF. So you can see I've got some pens down at the bottom here. I've got a marker. So maybe something that I did at school today is I read a book. So I'm going to have a little book there. It's got some words. Maybe it has a picture here. So I read a book. And I'm able to annotate over that PDF. When I'm done, I'm going to click Save in the top right-hand corner. It's going to save my edited PDF. And then I'll be able to turn that in as a student. So I'm going to click Turn In, and this assignment is going to go off to my teacher. I also had a question that I asked the students: did you bring your lunch? And if Tyler opens that up, he can say, yes, I brought my lunch, and click Turn In, and that information is going to go to me as the teacher. Now let's take a look at the draw and tell assignment here. The reason I did this draw and tell assignment is because students can actually use additional apps, let's say like Draw and Tell. They can create things on those apps, and when they're done creating something, they can export it. So I'm actually going to export this to my pictures. Once Tyler has saved his work from Draw and Tell, he can come back into Classroom. He's going to choose his Draw and Tell assignment. And he can expand that work, and he's going to choose Add Attachment, and he can actually choose that video that he made. Oh, looks like I got it on there twice. We'll just do it once. And then when he's done, he'll click Turn In. If a student sees Mark as done, that means that there's no attachment added to the assignment. If they see Turn In, that means there's actually something attached to that assignment.
Thanks for watching this webinar. As always, if you have any questions, you can contact the Connected Learning team at clteam@tsc.k12.in.us.